Tonight's book is going to ask something of you that none of the other books on this channel have asked. It is going to ask you to think about tomorrow morning, not with dread, not with the familiar low-level anxiety of another day beginning and everything it will demand of you, but with something closer to quiet intention. A gentle sense that tomorrow morning could be different from the ones that came before it. Not dramatically, not perfectly, but meaningfully. The book is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, published in 2012. One of those books that found its audience not through a big marketing push or a celebrity endorsement, but through word of mouth, person to person, one changed morning at a time, until it had sold millions of copies and spawned a community of people around the world who call themselves Miracle Morning Practitioners. Hal Elrod's story is worth knowing before we get into the ideas, because the ideas make more sense when you understand where they came from. In 1999, when Elrod was 20 years old, he was driving home from a sales conference when a drunk driver crossed the median and hit his car at 70 miles per hour. He was hit a second time by another car immediately after. He died for 6 minutes at the scene. When he was revived and eventually stabilized, he had broken 11 bones, suffered permanent damage to his brain, and was told by doctors that he would never walk again. He walked again within a year. Not because the doctors were wrong about the severity of his injuries, but because Elrod made a decision, consciously and deliberately, about how he was going to relate to what had happened to him. He decided, and this is the core of everything he teaches, that he could not change what had already happened, that the accident was a fixed point in the past, but that his response to it, the meaning he gave it, the identity he built in its aftermath, that was entirely within his control. He recovered. He rebuilt. He built a successful career. And then in 2008, the financial crisis hit and he lost nearly everything. He fell into depression. He gained weight. He stopped doing the things that had helped him recover the first time. And then a friend suggested he try running. He had not run in years. He hated running. But he agreed. And on the first morning of his new running routine, because he had read that successful people use their mornings intentionally, he decided to try something. He pulled together every personal development practice he had ever encountered, the ones that research and tradition and wisdom had consistently pointed to as genuinely transformative, and he did all of them in a single hour before his run. What happened that morning changed the trajectory of his life, and the Miracle Morning is his account of what he did, why it worked, and how anyone can do the same thing. The core of the book is what Elrod calls the lifesavers, 6 practices, each represented by a letter in the acronym, that together form what he calls the Miracle Morning Routine. S is for silence. A is for affirmations. V is for visualization. E is for exercise. R is for reading. S is for scribing, which is his word for journaling. He does not prescribe exactly how long to spend on each. He says even 1 minute per practice, 6 minutes total, is enough to begin experiencing the benefits. Most people who take the practice seriously end up spending somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour on the full routine. But the starting point is always wherever you are and whatever you can honestly commit to. Let's walk through each one, silence first. Elrod is not prescribing a specific meditation practice. He is not asking you to empty your mind or achieve any particular state. He is simply making the case, with a great deal of research behind him, that beginning the day in intentional silence, rather than immediately reaching for your phone or turning on the news or filling your mind with the demands of the day, changes the quality of everything that follows. The first minutes of the morning are neurologically significant. You are transitioning from sleep to wakefulness. Your brain is in a particularly receptive state. The thoughts and feelings and intentions you encounter in those first minutes tend to set the emotional tone of the hours that follow. Most people fill those minutes with the most anxiety-inducing content available. Notifications, news, social media, the mental rehearsal of everything they have to do. And then they wonder why the day feels frantic and overwhelming before it has properly begun. Silence in those first minutes is not emptiness. It is space. Space in which you can arrive in the day rather than being immediately ambushed by it. Space in which you can remember who you are and what matters to you before the world starts telling you who to be and what to care about. Even 5 minutes. Even sitting quietly with a cup of tea before you look at your phone. The research on this is consistent and clear. It changes the day. Affirmations next. Elrod acknowledges that affirmations have a reputation problem. They have been parodied and dismissed and associated with a kind of hollow positivity that serious people find embarrassing. And he says that reputation is partly deserved because most affirmations are done wrong. The typical affirmation is a statement about a desired reality that does not yet exist. I am wealthy. I am confident. I am healthy and strong. And the problem is that your brain, which knows the difference between what is real and what is aspirational, generates a quiet counter-argument every time. No, you are not. Look at your bank account. Look at how you felt at that meeting yesterday. Look at the fact that you have not exercised in 3 weeks. The affirmation and the counter-argument cancel each other out. And sometimes the counter-argument wins. And you feel worse than before you started. Elrod's approach is different. He says affirmations should be honest first. They should acknowledge where you are. They should reflect what you genuinely believe and what you genuinely intend. They should describe your commitments and your values rather than claiming achievements you have not made. Not I am wealthy, but I am committed to building financial security one deliberate decision at a time. Not I am confident, but I am learning to trust myself more each day, and I have evidence that I can handle difficult things. The honest affirmation, spoken with genuine feeling rather than wishful repetition, does something different in the brain. It does not generate the counter-argument because it is not overclaiming. It is simply reminding you of who you are choosing to be. Over time, Elrod says, these reminders compound. Not magically, but practically. Because what you remind yourself of in the morning becomes the lens through which you interpret the events of the day. And the lens changes what you see, and what you see changes what you do. Visualization. Elrod recommends 2 things to visualize. First, the life you are working toward. The version of your future that you genuinely want. Not in a vague, wishful way, but in specific sensory detail. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What are you doing? Who is with you? What has become possible that is not possible now? This is not magical thinking. It is mental rehearsal. The same technique used by athletes, surgeons, musicians, and high performers in almost every field. Vividly imagining a positive outcome activates the same neural pathways as the experience itself. It primes the brain to recognize and act on opportunities that move in the direction of the image. The second thing he recommends visualizing is the process. Not just the destination, but the steps. The person you need to be today, to move toward the life you just imagined. What does that person do this morning? How do they handle the challenges of this particular day? What choices do they make? This second visualization is often more immediately useful than the first because it connects the dream to the day. It answers the practical question of what being the person you want to become actually looks like in the next 12 hours. Exercise. Elrod is not prescribing a specific workout, He is not asking you to run a marathon or join a gym or commit to an hour of high-intensity training. He is simply making the case, and the research here is overwhelming, that some form of physical movement early in the day changes brain chemistry in ways that are measurable and significant. Exercise releases endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is essentially fertilizer for new neural connections. It reduces cortisol, the stress hormone. It increases energy and focus. It improves mood. It primes the brain for learning and creativity. 10 minutes of movement, a walk around the block, some stretching, a few minutes of yoga. Whatever your body can do and whatever you will actually commit to. The type matters far less than the fact of it. And doing it in the morning, before the day has made its demands and before the excuses have had time to organize themselves, makes it far more likely to happen than leaving it for later when energy and willpower are depleted. Reading. Elrod recommends reading for personal development rather than for entertainment in the miracle morning. Not because entertainment is bad, but because the morning is a particularly receptive time, and spending it filling your mind with ideas that expand your understanding of yourself and the world sets a different tone than passively consuming content. He suggests 10 pages a day as a minimum. 10 pages a day is roughly a book a month. 12 books a year. Over a decade, that is 120 books, each one a conversation with someone who spent years thinking carefully about something worth understanding. The cumulative effect of that reading is not just information. It is the gradual reshaping of how you think. The slow accumulation of frameworks and perspectives and ideas that change the quality of your inner life in ways that are hard to measure but impossible to miss. You are doing a version of this right now. Lying here at the end of the day, filling the last minutes of your waking mind with something worth carrying into sleep. That is the same impulse. The same recognition that what goes into the mind matters and that we have more say over it than we usually exercise. Scribing, journaling. Elrod says that writing is the one practice that most consistently produces immediate clarity. There is something about moving thoughts from the interior world to the exterior page that changes their nature. What was vague becomes specific. What was overwhelming becomes manageable. What was emotionally charged becomes something you can look at from a slight distance and respond to, rather than simply react to. He does not prescribe a specific format. Morning pages in the style of Julia Cameron. Gratitude lists. Goal setting, stream of consciousness. Whatever form of writing connects you to your own inner life and helps you show up to the day with more intention and more self-awareness is the right form. Even 5 minutes. Even 3 sentences. The practice of writing something true about your inner life every morning is one of the most powerful habits available to a human being. And it costs nothing except the willingness to be honest with yourself for a few minutes before the day pulls you outward. Now let's talk about the thing that most people immediately say when they hear about the miracle morning. I am not a morning person. Elrod takes this on directly. And he does not dismiss it. He acknowledges that for many people mornings are genuinely difficult, that the body clock is real, that some people are biologically wired to be more alert in the evening, that the cultural glorification of early rising can feel alienating and even shaming to people who simply do not function that way. And then he asks a question worth sitting with. Is not being a morning person something you are, or something you have practiced? Because most people who describe themselves as not morning people have spent years reinforcing that identity. Going to bed late, hitting snooze repeatedly, starting every morning in a fog of reluctance, building a story around the experience that makes it feel fixed and permanent, rather than habitual and therefore changeable. Elrod says the first 5 days of changing a morning routine are hard for almost everyone. The body protests. The mind generates reasons why this was a bad idea. Everything feels effortful and unnatural. And then something shifts. Not for everyone at exactly the same time. But reliably, over the first few weeks, the practice begins to feel less like something you are forcing and more like something you are choosing. The morning becomes something you look forward to rather than dread. Not because the alarm gets easier to hear, but because what waits on the other side of getting up has become genuinely worth getting up for. There is a section of the book about what Elrod calls the 5-minute snooze-proof wake-up, because he knows that the alarm is where most good intentions go to die. And he offers a practical sequence for those first disorienting minutes that is worth knowing. The first minute is about your alarm. He says put it across the room, not on your phone next to your bed. Across the room so that getting up to turn it off is a physical act that begins the transition from horizontal to vertical, from sleep to waking, from passive to active. This sounds trivial. It is not. The second minute is about reminding yourself immediately why you are getting up. Not the abstract reason. The specific reason. What is waiting for you in your morning practice. What you decided the night before to look forward to. Having a reason that is pull rather than push. Something you want to move toward rather than an obligation you are dragging yourself out of bed to fulfill. Changes the quality of those first seconds. The third minute is about getting yourself into your body, splashing cold water on your face, a few deep breaths, something physical that signals to the nervous system that wakefulness is beginning and it is time to arrive. The fourth and fifth minutes are about transition, moving to wherever your morning practice happens, making the tea or the coffee if that is part of the ritual, sitting down with your journal or your book, or finding the quiet that starts the silence practice. The whole sequence is about reducing the gap between the alarm and the point where you are actually doing the thing you intended to do. Because in that gap, the mind will find reasons to go back to bed. The ritual is designed to carry you across the gap before the mind has time to intervene. Let's talk about the level 10 life exercise that Elrod includes in the book. Because it is one of the most clarifying things in a book full of clarifying things. He asks you to rate 10 areas of your life on a scale of 1 to 10. Not where you think they should be. Not where you would like them to be. Where they honestly are right now. The areas are your health and fitness, your mind and personal development, your finances, your relationships with your family specifically, your social life and friendships, your romantic life, your fun and recreation, your physical environment, meaning where you live and how it feels to be there, and your sense of mission and purpose, the feeling that what you are doing with your life matters. Most people, when they do this honestly, discover that several areas are significantly lower than they realized, and that some of those areas have been low for a long time without being directly addressed because life moves fast and it is easy to avoid looking clearly at the whole picture. The level 10 life exercise is not designed to make you feel bad. It is designed to create clarity. Because you cannot meaningfully work toward a better life if you do not know which parts of the life you currently have are most in need of attention. The exercise is a kind of honest inventory. And honest inventories, however uncomfortable, are always the beginning of real change. Here is what Elrod most wants you to take from this book. And it is something he returns to throughout, always in slightly different words. Your level of success in every area of your life will rarely exceed your level of personal development, which means that the investment you make in yourself, in your mind, in your body, in your emotional and spiritual life, is not separate from the results you get in the world. It is the foundation of them. The miracle morning is a way of making that investment every single day. Not perfectly. Not without missing days and getting back on track and missing days again. But consistently enough that the compound interest of daily self-investment begins to show up in the quality of your thinking and the quality of your choices, and eventually in the quality of your life. It does not require you to become a different person. It requires you to become a more intentional version of the person you already are. To decide, each morning, before the world gets its hands on you, who you want to be today and how you want to show up. That decision, made deliberately and regularly, is what changes things. Not the circumstances. Not the luck. Not the conditions being finally right. The decision, made in the quiet of the morning before anyone else is asking anything of you, when the day is still blank and everything is still possible. So tonight, before you sleep, do something small. Decide what time you want to wake up tomorrow. Not the time you have to be up, the time you are choosing to be up. The time that gives you space before the day begins. Set your alarm for that time. If you can, put your phone across the room. And let yourself imagine, just briefly and without pressure, what it might feel like to wake up tomorrow and spend even 15 minutes on yourself before the day begins. Sitting quietly, writing something true, reading something good, moving your body even a little, reminding yourself of who you are and what you care about. That is all. That is the whole invitation. The morning is waiting. And it can be something genuinely different from what it has been. But that starts with sleep. So rest now. Let your body do what it knows how to do. Tomorrow begins tonight. Good night.